So how far did you have to twist Ryan's arm to get that trade for Jakeem Grant to happen?
Front office did a good job getting him. And we're excited to have him. See how it all plays out. Thanks for coming, Pat.
Is this a fine situation?
Could be.
How would you assess Grant as a returner?
I've played against him multiple times. He's a guy that you fear. I mean, he's a guy that obviously has speed, first step quickness, can make you miss, can use all field zones, whether it's the boundary, the middle, or take him to the field. So he kind of opens some things up in that area. But he's been a good player in this league, and we're fortunate to have him.
When a team acquires a player, maybe a skill position player, they always say he's got to learn the system. Can you kind of just explain what's involved in learning the system and coming in? Can a punt returner come in one day and then return punts for a team the next day? What's involved?
I think that's always possible. I think that, we just met him yesterday, so we're getting to know him, and as a coach, you want to play to his strengths and figure out what his strengths are. Just studying him on tape through the years, I feel like you have some recollection of what he likes, but it's good to hear from the player, and then how does that fit with us, and if we got to change some things to enhance his skill set, we can do that. That's easy. I mean, it's all, in my opinion, it's always about the player.
Chris, when you have these joint practices against teams, I mean, over the course of those days, how much are you paying attention to not just watching the other team specialists, but getting to know them if you have those opportunities? Because obviously this was a guy that you saw up close just a couple months ago.
No question. I think you're always doing that, and I mean, it's like any job. I mean, jobs are built on relationships and those type of things. But even when we're in pregame, watching the other team, I like to watch the other team warm up, watch guys' movement skills and those type of things. So when you study them on tape, and then when you're able to watch them up close, it just kind of either reconfirms what you think, or you say, you know what, maybe I viewed him wrong. So those days help, and like I say, I'm glad he's here.
He's packaged much differently than Cordero. Strictly in the kickoff return game, how do you evaluate him, and do you have to approach it differently with a completely different body type?
It is a different body type, but he still runs physical. He can be a downhill, but he can be a start and stop guy. He can be a guy that can bring it back across the field. He opens up different field zones, and I think that's the intriguing thing about him. So we'll just have to kind of work through it.
What was your take on Crawford's hit on the punt return?
I understand why they threw it, because it's a bang play. But as you go back and coach it, I mean, the returner is a defenseless player, but there is no halo. He has the opportunity to catch the football, which he did, and then Crawford did a nice job of making sure that he didn't lead with the head and he was below the head and neck area. So he did a nice job there.
So is there any coaching point there at all for the next
No, there is not. I mean, it is about timing. There's a clock that goes off in his head and those type of things, but I can't fault him for that play. So.
With Hunter Renfrow, what do you kind of have to be aware of on punt returns? And then, just curious, did you see the play he made on Monday night where he stopped the fake punt?
He's a smart football player. He's a really good football player. Very crafty. Before you know it, I mean, the guy will have a 15-yard return. I mean, he can take it to 30 yards. I mean, he's just a good football player. Some people say, well, he doesn't have long speed and all those things. At the end of the day, since we are playing football, I'm watching a good player that makes plays. I mean, he's been on our mind. We got to do a good job against him, or else he'll hurt us.
Is that element of surprise elevated when they're running a fake on 4th and 12?
Well, they didn't have they only had 10 players out there, and they were missing their corner, so they elected to throw the ball out there quickly to see if they could get a quick first down. And Hunter did a nice job of recognizing that they're missing a player, so he kind of played in between a little bit right there, and then makes a nice play, because when you throw it up to the outside, there is no pass interference. There can be holding out there, but there is no pass interference. So breaking it up, you can be much more violent with it, and he did a nice job on that play.
You see that sort of form tackling, too, on that play. Is that like the pinnacle from a special teams coach perspective, to see a guy who can do that as well?
Yeah, once again, I mean, he plays football. He's just good football player. He's not a receiver. He's a football player. I bet you they can plug that guy in a lot of different areas and he would do just fine and get the job done. He's been that type of player his whole career, and you saw it again on Monday night.
I realize that only so many teams have played in this stadium before, but is there a book on the stadium, on the wind, on the lighting, anything like that that you've been able to determine?
You know, I've talked to some other coaches that have played there. Obviously, Grant, he was there just a couple weeks ago in Miami, so trying to glean some information from him on that. But I don't have much information. I'm excited to see it. I'm sure it's beautiful.
So can you fake a punt against a team that just had
Had a fake punt, thinking that they'll think, no way anyone's going to fake a punt again? Is it a psychological?
I think you can. It's kind of like can you write a story that someone else wrote a story about? You can do that. No, you can. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you can, and I think that it's a new game and all those things, and you got to do whatever you got to do to move the ball.
Is Cairo just taking it week to week where he's not getting out of bed on Sunday thinking about, I got this streak going?
I don't even know I've only made 5. So, that's the next one's the most important one. We don't talk about it. Once again, I know it's very coach cliche-ish. It's just about the process. It really is. Had a good day yesterday. We'll do some what we call Jiffy Lube drills today to keep them in tune, and then we'll kick tomorrow, and then that prepares them for the game on Sunday. So,
Chris, you guys kept Simba on the practice squad. Were there other things he was doing that?
covering well on kickoff, and gives us an element of a receiver that can play in the 4-core area. And he's a guy that we still want to work with. I think he's a good football player, and I'm glad that he's back on our practice squad, because I tell all our practice squad guys, there's going to come a point in time where you're going to get elevated and have to play in a game, and when your number's called, you got to step up, because this league isn't a next man up mentality.
Chris, I asked this out of absolute curiosity. You're second in gross punting, but 20th in net, which is a big disparity. What do you, as a special teams coach, make of that?
I think that kind of goes back to a little bit of the Cleveland game where you're hitting I think some people say out kicking your coverage, and you elected to do that because you're flipping the field and those type of things. I think that obviously we still need to get better in the coverage area. That can happen where you have a high gross, and maybe before you even get there, you've given up a 15-yard return before anyone's even down there, and you might end up with a 45-yard net. So I will say this about numbers, and I don't disagree with you. Numbers, I think, stats are ideas about numbers. It's a little early in the season, those things. I do realize we need to get better at coverage, and we're working hard at that. And if we don't do it this week, Hunter Renfrow will get us. So we got to improve in that area. All right, thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you.